Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know, and we also answer fan questions later in the show. So if you're a Dolphins fan, hopefully you can stick around, maybe join the community that we have on this channel and ask your questions. So there's nothing really to talk about. This is the dead. I mean, there is nothing happening in the National Football League. I mean, there's certain things that are not related to the Dolphins, and even then, there's nothing really happening. So it really is the dead space. So we have very little to talk about in today's episode. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a 40-minute to 35-minute episode, just because there's just not enough to talk about. There's not enough content to talk about. It's just really just everything. Everybody's pretty much, it's the silent period for the NFL offseason. I can't wait till minicamp and training camp comes around, and then we can really delve into this quarterback competition between Ryan Fitzpatrick and Josh Rosen. That is going to be really, 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 really awesome to keep up with throughout the offseason, and that's probably going to be the big topic for today that we will discuss after we get through the news. So, just a little tease right there. So let's get into the news, ladies and gentlemen. Rookie camp has concluded. It is over. And we're going to go over little bits and pieces, very little stuff that we learned. There's some news, but not a lot. One of the news is the Dolphins held out a tryout for former University of Miami star Mark Walton. And the Dolphins have decided to sign Mark Walton. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins auditioned running back Mark Walton several days ago, and they apparently liked what they saw. The Bengals cut Walton in April after he was arrested for the third time in 3 months, but Cincinnati used a fourth-round pick on Walton in 2018, so even if he faces a suspension of some sort, his legal troubles, the rebuilding Dolphins won't need Walton to contribute right away. They found good value. So again, if you're not familiar with where our coaches come from, and I'm sure everybody who's listening to this show is very familiar with that, but just in case you're not, and I've said this multiple times, Chad O'Shea, obviously former receiver coach for the New England Patriots. Everybody basically on this staff has a significant role. Basically everybody's from the New England Patriots. So what they like to do in that offensive system, and what they've done for years, is use multiple running backs. So you think about James White, Sony Michel. This is what they did last year. James White, Sony Michel, Rex Burkhead, right? And you think about years past, Mike Gillislee was thrown in there. Jonas Gray was thrown in there. LeGarrette Blount obviously was a big part of that rotation with James White that brought them to the Super Bowl as many times as he did. So this offensive system calls for very versatile running backs that can do a lot of different things. At least that's what they had in the past. This time around, and this news, we'll get to Mark Walton here in a second. And this is relevant because how the Dolphins might use Mark Walton. Because I do think he will make the roster. I think he's talented enough to do so. It's interesting because this time around the roster that Chad finds himself currently with, we think about Kalen Ballage and Kenyon Drake. Both of them are, maybe other than James White and maybe Sony Michel now, but most of the time that Chad spent down in New England, they're far more talented and versatile than anyone that he has ever had, especially athletically. They're way more gifted, and they can do a variety of different things really, really well. When you think about Kenyon Drake and his skill set, he can do everything. He's a home run hitter. I think he can run between the tackles, outside of the tackles. He can do it all. He's got great instincts for a running back. He's got great hands. He's a great route runner. He's a super versatile back. He would be a one in most people's rosters, and he would be someone that could carry a load. Now, his injury history is obviously very weird. He's always been a back that splits time, but he's still very, very effective, and his talents, he's capable of being a one anyway, really. Then you think about Kalen Ballage, his traits are very similar to Kenyon's. He's very versatile. He's a bigger back. He can also go outside and inside the tackles. He can run most schemes. He's athletic. He's super fast. He's strong. He can catch the ball coming out of the backfield. He's super versatile. And that makes it interesting because when you look at what the New England Patriots do, James White is a very versatile running back. He's not maybe as good of a runner as he is a receiver, but really all three of them have different roles and in that offense. So it's going to be interesting to see how like a Mark Walton fits into the rotation because the two other guys in front of him do everything that you would want a running back to do very well. So it's interesting to see how he rotates them in and out of the game. Kenyon and Kalen's a different story. If it was just those two, then it would be easy. But now I throw Mark Walton in there, who's also a talented back, who, I mean, he's very capable of making plays in a football game. It's going to be interesting to see how all three of those guys are utilized. I think Kalen and Kenyon are far more talented and versatile than Mark Walton is. Mark's more of a traditional guy than he is. I don't think he's as versatile as both of those guys in front of him. He's definitely not as athletically gifted as those guys in front of him. Both of them are bigger backs than he is, and they can still catch the ball and run outside of the backfield, and they're super explosive. So it's going to be interesting to see, even if he does make the roster, let alone how he's utilized within the roster, or within a game plan, because really when you have a back rotation, I think the ideal situation really is just have a bunch of guys that do something really well, and that way it's in situational football, whether it's 3rd and 1, okay, we're putting in Blunt. It's 3rd and 5, we need a little hot route on a blitz, let's put in James White. Stuff like that. Different traits that both of those guys have that you can utilize in a game. It's like, I don't want to repeat myself, but it's just going to be interesting to see how Mark fits into that and how Chad rotates, if he is in the rotation, if he earns it, how he rotates 3 backs. That's going to be really interesting because the 2 in front of him, like I just stated, do like I just said, like that scenario with Blunt coming in on 3rd and 1. You can put Kalen in there on a 3rd and 1. He's a big running back. He's a big physical, can be a big physical back. But he also can run around out of the backfield. That's something he did very well in college. And something that we saw a little bit of in the NFL. But he wasn't used a lot throughout the season, and he should have been. But, I mean, he had, 175 yards against the Vikings, so it's just going to be interesting to see how Mark fits in. I would not be surprised if he didn't make the roster, if he was put on the practice squad at some point, maybe during the season to make room for someone who's injured. I just don't feel like he's going to contribute a whole lot to the 2019 season unless someone gets hurt. He adds a really, really good depth. This backfield is really, really good. Like he could be a 2 anywhere really else, and he could be a very good 2. But just the backfield, I think our backfield is super underrated, dude. If we can get this offensive line figured out, and who knows if that'll ever happen during the season, this backfield, it has a chance to be really special. And mix that in with Josh Rosen, who we haven't had a quarterback in a long time that is very good with ball location, and he's just, I mean, Ryan really never was good at throwing a fade. He was never really good at throwing the difficult passes from the pocket, especially in the red zone. Like his fade, I mean, we saw that in the first game against Tennessee. We tried to throw one to Mike Gesicki, or however you want to say it. It was intercepted by, I think, Malcolm Butler at the time. So mix that in with Josh Rosen, who is your prototypical drop back quarterback who is super talented throwing the football, which we haven't had in a long time. Is more of a traditional guy who can do everything, and as talented as Josh Rosen is, it's going to be interesting to see how well this offense does. It doesn't ride on the quarterback as much as everybody wants to think that. It rides on the people around him. We have the receivers, we have the backfield. The tight end is still a bit of a question mark, though I do believe that Mike Gesicki's second year around, hopefully he lives up to the talent that he has, because I feel like he has potential to be a very, very good player. But the offensive line, all of it rides on the offensive line. If the offensive line can be stable enough and consistent, this offense has a chance to be pretty good. It really, really, really does. I mean, Chad, or the receiver coach, I can't remember his name as of right now, after rookie minicamp concluded, he said, and he's obviously had past work with the Patriots as well, I think, and some different teams that I can't remember right now offhand, but you guys can look it up. But he said this was the fastest receiver core he's ever been a part of. Now, that might not be saying, I mean, really everybody on this team's 4-2, 4-3 at the receiver position. Then you had Preston Williams in there, and maybe he could shake some things up a little bit and be our outside guy, who knows. maybe Devontae Parker gets coached up by Chad, who's a really good receivers coach, can help them. But Albert Wilson and Jakeem Grant, I know that they're going to show up. So this offense has a chance. And it's really funny how, and this all pertains to Mark Walton because he's a part of it. It's really interesting how little it's not really interesting. It's actually, it doesn't matter. I mean, how the media outside of the Dolphins, the Dolphins media, out of the Sun Sentinel and the Miami Herald and so on and so forth, how little no one knows about some of these guys. Like, this offense it's just the trenches, man, that need to be fixed. And this how it's going to take 2 to 3 years for this team, we have nothing in the cupboards, like it's all bare bones, is absolutely ridiculous. The defense is the same thing with the offense. It all rides on the line of scrimmage. When you look at the secondary that our defense sports, it is interesting how everybody's like, this is a complete and total rebuild. The secondary is one of the best in the league. Bleacher Report said we had the best safety group in the National Football League. And then, okay, so let's say that's true. Look at the cornerback position. We got Xavier Howard, all-pro player from last year. Eric Rowe, who's a solid player in the league, especially in man-to-man coverage. Bobby McCain, one of the better slots in the league. Minkah Fitzpatrick you can play him outside, inside. If there's if Eric Rowe has problems, we can put Minkah back there. Put Rashad. I don't know what you want to do with those two. I think Rashad can play a little bit of free safety if he doesn't get so crap and aggressive all the time and blow coverages, because that's what he does when he plays free safety. But we have better coaches now. I mean, way better than Matt Burke and any of our secondary coaching. Like, we have way, 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 way better coaching now than we did before. So hopefully that helps with some of that kind of stuff. Maybe we can, But the point is there's a lot of talent in that secondary. The linebackers are not, I don't think they're terrible. And now we talk about the multiple fronts and stuff and how some of those guys are going to fit into that. It's going to be interesting, but I'm not as worried about that as the pass rushing situation that we currently have. I think the interior defensive line actually is pretty decent. It's actually not bad at all. You think about Christian Wilkins, Vincent Taylor, Devon Godshaw. I mean, those three are just fine. So it's just really the outside presence that we're lacking on the defensive side. So this roster is not. There's only a few positions that positional groups I could say that are in the way of us becoming a contender for at least the sixth spot in the AFC. And I'm not even joking about that. Now, granted, I'm talking about the offense and defensive lines, which are some of the most important, in my opinion, positions in football. So it's not like this is some small hurdle that you can overcome. This is a big mountain that we have to figure out. But everybody acts like this team has no talent on it. And it's ridiculous. That's not true. There's just a few other things. And who knows? Jonathan Woodard, who else? See, this is when we get a little crazy. Like, who else is really going to step up to the plate to be that edge guy? We'll see, man. We'll see. But it really just comes down to... I love how I went on this rant about the roster. But it really comes down to the two lines on both sides of the football. How good of a season this Dolphin team has in the 2019 season. If the offensive line is fixed, then I think you're going to have a productive year on offense. If the defensive line isn't fixed, I think the defense will be fine. I don't think it'll be terrible, but it still won't be good enough to contend. Because if you can't have a consistent pass rush, it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Because the secondary is good. And if we have less busted coverages, I feel like the defense will still be okay. I don't think it'll be terrible. But the offense is the side of the ball that I worry about the most, which could wreck the entire season. If you have a bad offensive line, I mean, you might as well kiss everything goodbye, especially if you don't have a quarterback that can get outside of the pocket and make plays with his legs. So, again, we'll see what happens, but I still feel like there's a lot of hope there. And there's a lot of potential to be a good football team. I feel like not a lot of people are talking about that. So I just wanted to put that. It's a possibility that this team could be pretty good. Not pretty. I don't like we're going to be a great team. Like a good football team that could go 8-8, 9-7, and 10-6, somewhere in there. I feel like this game could do that if the Lions get worked out. And the offensive line has a chance to. The defensive line have, in terms of having a consistent good pass rush, I have less faith in. But the offensive line, I have more faith in. I feel like we added some people that could potentially be good players. But we don't know yet. So that's what's a wait and see kind of a situation. This next news story is an obvious one. The Dolphins signed Xavier Howard to an extension. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins have signed cornerback Xavier Howard to a 5-year extension worth $76 million. Howard will collect $46 million in guarantees. So yeah, that's about it. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's surprised about this. He's one of the best ball hawks, if not the best in the National Football League. His ball skills are ridiculous. He fits this scheme literally to a T. Matt Burke, we didn't consistently play man-to-man coverage, but when you look at what Xavier does best, it's man-to-man coverage. His instincts are ridiculous. A lot of his interceptions were just the feel for the game. And so a lot of people, and especially in the national, that really separate. Excuse me, I sound like a 4-year-old. Don't need to, you start mumbling, jumping words. I had like 2 different thoughts at the same time. My brain broke down. Anyway, when you combined great talent with great instincts and a knowledge for the game, which I think instincts are the same thing. Preparation, I think, leads to that. You just have to understand the game. That separates from the good from the great, is having great instincts. And I feel like, I mean, you just look at some of those interceptions Xavier had, especially towards 2 years ago, the 2017 season, the end of that season, you started to see, okay, Xavier's something's like pretty special. The 2 picks off of Tom Brady, the pick 6 against the Broncos, he finished that year very strong, and then we were like, okay, we got to see, let's see him do it again. He did it again for an entire season. He had 7 interceptions. Could have possibly broke he missed 4 of the last games. Could have broke Paul Krause's 12 interception single season record if he kept up the production that he had all the rest of the season. He's a good tackler for a cornerback, and I'm just for a cornerback. Listen, gotta use it in that context. He's a physical player. He gives great effort every snap. He's got great ball skills, great instincts. He's a great cover corner. What I mean by that, he's great in man-to-man. He fits the scheme. It's perfect. Not only does Brian run a man-to-man defense, and that's what New England does, but he also likes to send 0-man pressure. And really what that means is you're really putting 3, possibly 4 secondary guys on an island. And you're just sending, it's basically the old term, the jailbreak blitz, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. I feel like you can really mix up blitzes that are 0-man pressures that can really, really win you a football game. And you really don't have to have great defensive ends. If you have great athletes and you run that kind of a defense, you can be very successful. So he fits that as well. You're confident that, hey, if we send this pressure, Xavier's going to take their best receiver out of the play, and that's super valuable. That's super, super valuable. When you can nullify a player like that in a 0-man pressure, that's almost, that is something that very little teams have in the league, and he's capable of that. So I feel like, I don't think anybody's sitting here and saying that he didn't deserve the contract that he got. Of course he did. We all wanted him to get extended. He's a consistent football player. He's a great football player, and that's not, that doesn't come by very often. And usually when we've had the opportunity to re-sign great players that we developed, when you think about Jarvis Landry, Olivier Vernon, I'm sure I'm forgetting someone else right now, Lamar Miller, I guess you could throw him in there as well. We haven't done it, so finally we do it. You could make an argument that he's better than all of those guys. He definitely had a better single season than any of those guys ever had as a Dolphin. So, and 7 interceptions, and he didn't even finish the entire year, and he was just dominant the entire season. So, very, very little times did I don't think he ever let up a 100-yard receiver. I could be wrong about that. I know the night we played the Texans, he let up like 88 yards against Hop, and I think that was the closest, and that really wasn't his fault. A lot of that was just relying on help, and it wasn't there, and the coverage was busted. So, And he, not that he needed the help, it was just like we're playing zone, and you felt okay. We got over the top coverage. Maybe it's a cover two. I let him go, and then nobody's there, and it's a big play. So yeah, I think he absolutely deserved it. This next news story is the final news story of the day. Why this comes from Dolphins Wire, the title that it's more opinion based, but it also has news merits in there as well. Why fullback Chandler Cox is the perfect 2019 Miami Dolphin. So this comes from rookie camp, and this is what some coaches had to say. I think this is Brian Flores. I think he said when he asked him about Cox in his role, Chandler Cox in his role on the football team, Brian said, quote, I think he is a versatile player. I think he's somebody that you can move around in the backfield and in some tight end positions. You can split him out a little bit. He's going to work with the tight ends. He's going to work with the backs. He's going to move around. He's someone that has got that ability. He's going to work in the kicking game as well. He's thrown the football. He's a former quarterback. We'll see what we can do there. That was more of a joke at the end. But who knows? Maybe we were in a little flea flicker with him. The Patriots have been known to do that every once in a while. So yeah, this is interesting. I feel like he definitely has a plan. I think Chandler's definitely making the roster, and I feel like Chandler, there's a plan for how to utilize his talents. And this is a player that the Dolphins coaching staff clearly wanted on the football team. I think he's definitely more of a Kyle Juszczyk than he is a Pat Devlin. Pat Devlin is basically an extra offensive lineman. He can't really do anything else. He's just a really good lead blocker. When you talk about Chandler, he's very Kyle Juszczyk-esque. I'm not going to say he's going to be as good as Kyle Juszczyk because who knows, but he can do all of those things Brian stated. He can split out wide, he can catch balls out of the backfield, and he can also be a pretty good lead blocker. And so I'm very excited to see how he's utilized, and just like he talking about using him in a tight end position, all that other stuff is pretty cool, and I can't wait to see how we use him. And Brian went on to say how hard it is nowadays, and for defenses to defend two back sets. When he's talking about that, he's talking about like the I formation and formations like that. Teams aren't really used to, and I don't even think it's really that they're, well, in college for sure they're not used to, the players aren't used to, but I think it's just the personnel that everybody has is really just get after the quarterback and have a good secondary. There's a lot of 4-3 teams out there that aren't really the most dominant, most physical teams in the world at stopping the run, so it adds that extra element that teams aren't really used to seeing in a week in and week out basis. The only team that I can think of that was very successful that ran the I formation that didn't have a terrible team was the Patriots. When you look at everybody else running it, it's like the Jets, and it's like in a cloud of smoke. They really just can't do anything else because their personnel isn't very good. So it really is just one receiver set and we're running the football. So I think it adds versatility to the team, and I can't wait to see the variety of different formations we run and stuff like that, because last year it was very one-dimensional stuff that we were running, very similar. We're running the same thing, it seemed like, each and every single week. We really weren't changing all that much, and I know a lot of people had a problem with that, especially with Adam Gase. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's utilized in the variety of different formations that I expect to see on a week in and week out basis for this football team. It's going to be really, really fun. All right, so let's get into... Listen, guys, that might actually be the last... Yeah, I think that is the last news story. Oh, yeah, let's get into the big topic. Before we get into fan Q&A, we're really trying to... This episode's probably going to suck, because we're really trying to just stretch. I'm trying to not make up stuff, but just... because none of this is made up so far, but I'm trying to stretch out this as long as I possibly can, while still making it entertaining and stuff that you guys want to listen to. So this is the last thing we're going to talk about before we get into the fan Q&A, but the big topic is Josh Rosen versus Ryan Fitzpatrick and how heated this is going to be. I think it's going to be really competitive, and really, really competitive. Both quarterbacks are good t-shirt and short guys. When pads get on, which they don't a lot, especially even in training camp they don't, I think what it's really going to come down to is preseason, especially if they both perform. Like I just said, they're both really good t-shirt and shorts guys. but I think, like, I'm repeating myself, but I think it will come down to preseason and who performs better under pressure in a competitive environment, because that is the closest thing you're going to get to a regular season game. I hope, my preference for who I would like for someone to win it, middle training camp. Not even at the end of training camp. Well, maybe at the end. Well, yeah, I really wouldn't care if it was middle or the end of training camp. But before preseason, I would love for someone to win it, and I would hope it would be Josh Rosen, because the chemistry, I think the most is very important with the entire team. I think that's very important, especially with the quarterback and the offensive line. I've always thought hopefully you have a pretty set lineup throughout. I would love for us to have an offensive lineup throughout training camp. That's not going to happen, and that hasn't happened in a long time in Miami, really. I hate every year when coaches are saying, yeah, we're going to try this guy at this position. It's like, and they're going to cross-train everybody. It's like, please don't do that. Just play a guard at guard. And if you need depth at guard, then get someone there who's a backup that can be versatile. I don't care about my starters being versatile as much. So, the point is personal preference, I would love to see someone win it earlier on, because I think it's for the benefit of the team, in my personal opinion. But competition breeds excellence. So I'm very excited. Dude, this is going to be fun, man. I can't remember the last, because not only is this going to be a competition, but they're both talented guys. I mean, Josh is obviously the guy that we're all pulling for, probably, I would expect. But again, they're both good t-shirt and shorts guys. They're going to go out there. They can throw it around the yard. There's not a throw that both of them can't make. They're pretty accurate, especially when there's no pressure on them and they have to make tough decisions. So it's going to be really fun to watch. Hopefully we get like a Steve Young type Joe Montana. Literally, I'm not comparing Ryan Fitzpatrick and Josh Rosen to some of the greatest quarterbacks to ever live, but like, I want that kind of media coverage and just fiery competition. That's what I want with this one, and I think it's going to be really, really fun, and I can't wait. Because unlike him being like a rookie, we're going to sit him. No, he's going out there and he's going to compete for the job, and it's going to be really fun, man. How things have changed. The outlook on this team was very grim. I mean, there was a point, even, we'll throw Ryan Fitzpatrick in there. We had Ryan Fitzpatrick, Luke Falk, and Jake Rudock at one time. I mean, no one on the planet Earth wants to see that, okay? I don't care who you are. So now that Josh really, and some of the things that we've done in the draft and adding players here and there have really spark things up a little bit. One thing I forgot to mention, I don't know if we mentioned this in the last podcast, but Jordan Mills was also signed. I don't think the Dolphins are going to make any more moves, but we have to talk about this. He signed a 1-year prove-it deal. I can't remember for how much money. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I completely forgot about this. Yeah, the Dolphins have signed former Buffalo Bills right tackle Jordan Mills. I do have his stats here. He let up 6.5 sacks last year. I think that's one more than Jawan did, or maybe they both let up. He let up 6.5 and Jawan let up 6, but I know for sure Jordan let up 6.5. Talented guy. I think he's a solid guy. I don't think he's terrible. I think he's solid. I don't think he's good, in particular, but I do think he's solid. Is the best way to describe him. He was a part of one of the worst offensive lines last year, but let's say he does give up another 6.5 sack year, but everybody else is pretty good, then I'm fine with that. If he's like the one leaky hole that's not really that leaky, then I'm totally cool with that, because Jesse Davis at guard then you got Michael Dieter on the other side, and maybe you could put Jesse at center, or maybe moved it. Like, there's some things you can do in the interior that is respectable. It's just really that right tackle position that really there's no one. It's a huge question mark. So if he can just be half decent there, then I'm cool with that. And he could be healthy. I'm definitely. He's a physical guy too. I think he's pretty good. No, I don't think he's pretty good. He's pretty decent against the run as well. He's a physical tackle. That was. He's we haven't had that in a while, other than maybe B.A. Brandon Albert. So he does definitely bring a physical presence to the team. He reminds me a little bit of Trent Brown. He's not as big, but he has that similar play style. So, I will see. We'll see how that works out. But I like the signing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. If you want to be a part of that, all you gotta do is subscribe. I upload a video where it literally says just get your questions in. You click the video, then you make a comment. And then you ask your question, and then I answer it on the show. So if you want to be a part of that, then go check out the channel. I uploaded this at a terrible time, so hopefully we can, we don't got that many questions to answer, on top of the fact there's not that much to talk about. So again, this episode is probably going to be pretty short. This first question comes from Ron. He says, Skaggs, who is your favorite undrafted rookie free agent that the Miami Dolphins have signed? My favorite undrafted rookie? That's a tough one. It's more tough than, I would have to say Preston Williams, just because of the potential. I mean, I really don't. I know he ran a slower 40 time than a lot of people, and he didn't play at a big school, but he did play against good competition. He played against, I think the two biggest schools he played against was Arkansas and Tennessee. I might be wrong about that. He might have played even better competition, but I could be skipping on a team, but so it's not like he didn't play good competition. I know he plays at a good small school. And I know that the 40 time was disappointing. It was a 4.640. But when you watch him play and then you look at his production, it's like this guy has everything that you see of him. It's like, dude, this guy's at least a 5, somewhere in the 5 rounds. I'm not going to say a round 1, but definitely 3 through 5 for sure. For him to go undrafted obviously he has the off the field issue. So I think all of that contributed to it. Small school. Off the field issues, and slow 40 time, all affected it. But a 4.6 is not that slow. Number one, maybe for a receiver, it's a little on the slower side. But he is a big dude. He's 6'4", 200 plus pounds. So that's a little bit more acceptable. Not everybody's DK Metcalf. He's a good route runner. He's a physical guy. He's got really good hands. Look at what he had. He had 98 plus catches. 2 years there, over 1,000 yards, great touchdown production. When you look at him and his resume and you watch him play, it's like this guy has potential to be very, very, very good. So I'm excited to see what he does. Hopefully those off the field issues, because they will not be tolerated with this coaching staff, and I would not be surprised if that was the one reason that he was cut, if he does something stupid like a Chad Ochocinco situation where Chad punches his girl or something stupid like that happens, where you're like, well, what the heck, and then he gets cut. Or did Chad headbutt his wife? I don't know. I don't want to say what he did, but there was definitely a domestic dispute with that particular situation. So I'm very interested to see what Preston does. So I would have to say Preston Williams, just because it's like, dang, man, this guy he's really good. You know what I mean? He's not like you look at him and you're like, dang, you should have been drafted. Is really what I'm trying to get at here. So that's why I think he's probably my favorite, just because of the potential. All right, this next question comes from Alpha. He says, Skaggs, what does Rosen have to do this year to prove he is our quarterback of the future, and that we don't go after Tua? 8-8 playoffs, or is it more about his QBR as well? So stats versus winning. What is it more about? To me personally, if individually you perform at a high level and we still don't win a ton of games, then I know how to move forward. It's interesting that the quarterback position gets judged that way. If I look at an offensive lineman that's on a 1-15 football team, right, and he's a dominant guy, but the rest of everybody around him was just so bad that they couldn't win any football games. Joe Thomas, right? Do I judge Joe Thomas because of that? No. I judge the organization. I judge the roster that's around him. The quarterback position is similar. Phillip Rivers, if you look at his career, and there was and even Drew Brees had a 3-year stint there where they weren't winning games, but he was still a very exceptional player. To me, I judge players on individual merits. What did you accomplish? Did you do a good enough job? Were you good? You know, that's where I go. And if you want to contribute that to statistics, then you can. It's not always stats. Sometimes it's just the way you play. Or it really should always be the way you play. Even if your stats aren't gaudy. So I guess it's just individually, really, is how I would do it. How do I think what does he have to do to prove? If he has a good year individually, then I think the Dolphins will go with him in being the starter for the 2020 season. I think they're smart enough to know that the roster around him, if it fails and the offensive line is terrible, is the reason we didn't win as many games as as many as we wanted to, right? I don't know why that was a problem for me to get out. I think they're smart enough to realize that. Now, you might counter with that was like, well, is this another Tannehill situation? Depending on what kind of season he has. Like, if he throws for 28 touchdowns to 20, let's say 25 to 28 touchdowns, but throws 15 to 18 interceptions. Well, I guess that's a little bit too many. That's like Mark Sanchez picks level. I don't know what would be a good year. I don't know. Maybe let's say he throws 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Or 25 touchdowns. Well, if he threw for 25 and 6, that would be a great year. But 21 and 6 or 5, right? I don't know what is the sweet spot, man. That's a tough one, dude. I think it will come down to individual. I don't think this team is going to be as bad as a lot of people think it's going to be. I think it's going to be better. So his wins might, if we go 8-8 and he has a good solid year, I think he will be the quarterback going forward. It really, to me, I think it does. What does he have to do to prove that? Just him do whatever you can do by yourself. Be the best you can be. Like, is I think the best way you can. I don't think he has to be this great. I don't think he has to have to go 45 touchdowns and 10 picks. That's a tough one, man. Because wins, obviously, if he goes 9-7 and 10-6, then yeah, he's gonna be the quarterback for the foreseeable future. But if he plays really well, and then maybe we go 8-8 or 7-9 or 6-10, does he still? Yeah, I still think he does. I think he will be judged as an individual. I think is my answer to the question. I don't think he has to go 10-6. If he has good numbers, which means he was good as an individual player, then yes. So I think it comes down to him having an individual good performance, giving his surroundings. That's a tough question to answer, though, because if the offensive line is right, this team's gonna win some games. It's gonna win some dang games. It's got a great coaching staff. Then, if they have a solid offensive line, they have the tools to work with. Like, this team is a solid football team at that point. So we'll see. I think it just comes down to an offensive line, man. I know that doesn't answer. It's a very vague answer, but it's an interesting discussion. This next question comes from Lewis. Let me get closer. I don't think that says Lewis. It does. He says his question is, hey, what they do, Skag? You spelled my name wrong. We're my last name wrong. He says, hope you're enjoying this offseason as much as I am. With the front office leading up the run game and pass threats, who are your top 3 offensive players that weren't with us last year that are going to put up impressive performances? He says, so I spaced out there. So hope you're enjoying this offseason as much as I am. I am enjoying the offseason, Lewis. With the front office loading up the run game and passing threats, who are your top 3 offensive players that weren't with us last year that are going to put up impressive performances? That's a great question. There's a lot of second-year guys that I'm like, Kalen's a perfect example. Jakeem, people are coming off injuries that I feel like are going to be good, have bounce-back seasons, but players that weren't with us, that's a tough one, dude. We didn't sign that many people. And drafting really offensively. I mean, I gotta say Josh. Josh for sure. Preston. And in terms of, you know what, I might switch out Preston. I'm gonna say Chandler Cox. I think he's gonna be like a fan favorite, like a Mike Allstott. You know what I mean? Who's just a good team player, and who's gonna affect the game more than people might realize. So Josh Chandler. Myles Gaskin's a good player. Mark Walton's a good player. I just don't think they're going to see the field as much. And those two are going to compete for that 30 spot. Michael Dieter could be one of those guys. Dwayne Allen could also be one of those guys. I'm gonna go with Michael Dieter. I'm gonna go with Michael Dieter, Josh Rosen, and Chandler Cox. I'll say that. And for Chandler, I think he's gonna be effective. He's gonna be one of those fullbacks that, like a Mike Allstott, that can catch the ball out of the backfield, that can take some carries, that can play some tight end, do very different things. And like a Kyle Juszczyk, I think he's gonna be like a fan favorite type of a player who just doesn't get the credit that he deserves. Like a Moose Johnson for the Cowboys, like those type of players. I don't think his name's Moose Johnson. I think I got his name mixed up, but he was a former fullback, if you don't know, for the Cowboys. Kyle Juszczyk type of a player, and then obviously Michael Dieter. He could be our very like Quentin Nelson light, Diet Coca-Cola of the version of Quentin Nelson, who could just really help this offensive line be better and put a good performance out there. And then you look at Josh Rosen for obvious reasons. Like, he could be the quarterback that we've been searching for a long time. So I think those are the three reasons why I would put those guys in that situation. Or those are my three guys. That's why I would pick those guys. This next question comes from Pete. He says, how would you rank this year's offseason? He says, more compared to the 2012 offseason moves when we got Tannehill. Also, what team is better equipped to win now? The 2012 rookie team, Tannehill team, or the 2018 Josh Rosen team? The defense, the secondary is not as good as it is now. The defensive line is better. The linebackers are more proven than they were right now, but they're not going to be better. I think that this team's linebackers are going to be better because, to be honest with you, the 2012 team with Kevin Burnett that we signed and Carlos Dansby, they were supposed to be the guy, but they weren't. We got rid of them the year after that. Or maybe Carlos was 2011. I can't remember. And I don't remember. I'm thinking about the roster. The offensive line for the 2012 team, I'm gonna say, is probably better than it is right now. Just because there's a lot more. There's Mike Pouncey. I think Jake Long. That was his. That offensive line was solid, dude. It was a solid offensive line. Richie Incognito. I mean, there's some good offensive linemen on that team. So I would say the offensive line was better. The defensive line was better. I don't think the secondary was better. The tight end position is not better. It has less depth. The receivers are way worse. The running backs, the depth there is not as good when you talk about Daniel Thomas, a rookie Lamar Miller, who did not see the field at all, and Reggie Bush, who had a pretty decent season with us. Pretty good season, actually. Had like 1,000 yards rushing. But I think we can get more production out of this backfield than the 2012 backfield. So really, I think everything's better on the 2018 team except the offensive defensive lines. I think the linebackers are better this year than they were in 2012. But I think that defensive line with Paul Soliai, Randy Starks, and Cameron Wake was pretty good, and they performed pretty well. And 2012 year, I think Wake had a really good year that year. So, in OV's rookie year, he really didn't get a lot of playing time. But I think the 2018 team is a better football team. It has more depth on it. It's more versatile. The receiving, our offensive explosion capabilities are better. If we had the 2012 offensive line and then we combine that with the 2018 skill positions, that's a good crap. That's a pretty dang good. And put Josh Rosen at quarterback, that's a really good offense. But again, it just comes down to the offense. I think a better football team, though. What roster would I rather have? It would definitely be the 2018 roster. For sure. For sure. When you look at the secondary and some of the players on defense, a lot of them are aging. And literally, basically, almost all of them weren't there the following season, or just didn't live up or did not perform as well the following season, especially on the offense. The offensive line was just in shambles after that season. So, yeah, the 2018 team is better. It's a better roster. It's way better. All right, let's move on to the next question. That's a great question, though. If you guys remember the 2012 team, the receiving core was terrible. Devon Bess, even though Brian Hartline, I think, had 1,000 yards that season, was our best receiver at the time. I think you can make an argument that Brian was. But I feel like Devon he had more catches in bigger moments than, some of the plays that he made against Seattle come to mind. Obviously Brian had a big game against Arizona, but we lost that game. So yeah, the receiving core was terrible. Our best tight end was Anthony Fasano. The skill positions were so bad. Reggie Bush was good, but he wasn't. He wasn't. The depth there wasn't that great, and it wasn't as versatile. And I just don't think as a group we're gonna get way more production out of the team that we currently have. I think it would be really dumb if you took, as a GM, and you're going to build off of, let's say you're going to try to build, because this is the start of something new for both of these teams, really. You definitely take the 2018 roster. I don't think there's any debate about that. Now, that's not just because I'm saying that we saw how that went. There were just a lot of older players on that roster. You think about some of the guys that left after that season, or maybe it was well, not after that season. Like Sean Smith on the? Yeah, Sean Smith was on the 2012 team. I think Vontae Davis got traded that off season, or maybe it was after that year. There was just a lot of older guys that just we're not gonna have long-term success with. So, yeah. All right, let's move on. I could talk about that for a long time. That was a great question, Pete. That was probably the question of the week. The sixth question comes from Ron. He says, who do you think the early starting 5 offensive linemen will be in your eyes? Mine would be Tunsil at left tackle, guard Isaac Asiata, center Dieter, right guard Calhoun, and right tackle Prince. I'm going to say Jordan Mills is going to be at right tackle. I'm going to say Laramie Tunsil is going to be at left tackle. I think left guard, you're going to have Michael Dieter. I think right guard, Jesse Davis is a really good pass blocker, but he is so bad. He's not physical enough against the run. He's so bad. He has way too much penetration in the running game. But he's a good play-action blocker, too. He's a really good play-action blocker. Maybe this coaching staff can help him with that. So I'm going to put Jesse Davis at right guard and then just put Daniel Kilgore at center. I think that's a pretty solid group. I think that left side is pretty good. The right side is a little bit more worrisome. I think Jesse Davis is going to be pretty dang good against the Ed Olivers and the Quentin Williams in the passing game. It's just the running game that I'm worried about. I think Prince, he looks, and he had, some of the stuff that he did in college was pretty good, but I think he's more of a project than maybe someone like Jordan Mills. So I would expect him to start there. But we'll see. But I think, who do you think the early starting 5? I think those would be the guys. So Jordan Mills, right tackle, right guard Jesse Davis, center Daniel Kilgore, left guard Michael Dieter, and tackle Laramie Tunsil. I would not be surprised if Michael Dieter moved to center, though, Ron. Just like you. This next question comes from Ron again. He says Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network just put out his undrafted rookie All-Star team on defense, and 2 of the Dolphins signings were on his list. Terrell Hankins of New Mexico State and cornerback Montre Heritage of Northwestern. What do you make of the mainstream media starting to warm up to the Miami Dolphins franchise now? He had 2 defensive guys. Did he have? I'm assuming he had Preston Williams on that team as well. I mean, I guess if that is considered warming, I don't know. I've seen a lot of ignorant statements out there about this team. Like, this team is like so ridiculously like, oh, it's like it gives you kind of a headache. I mean, and I'm not joking around. When you think about some of the offensive weapons on this team, you think about we have a 6'6" tight end that ran a 5.40 time, who can jump out of the gym in terms of back shoulder fades, who didn't have a quarterback that could throw him fader outs and 50-50 balls last year. Our receiver core is ridiculously fast. Albert Wilson looked like a number 1 receiver before he got hurt. The speed and the versatility that you can, and creativity that you can use with that receiver core, and the separation that they could get with one of the best, if not the best, receiver coach in the National Football League, who is now our offensive coordinator, is currently on the team. And this coaching staff is really good, surrounding them with the backfield that we have with Kenny Drake and Kalen Ballage that have the talent, who are super explosive. It's just, can we protect, is the question. That's the kind of stuff that I don't think the media is talking about. This next question comes from Mr. 305. He asks, I have a feeling that the Miami Dolphins can beat the Patriots twice this year just because Mr. Flores is on their playbook, just like the Detroit Lions. What are your thoughts about that? It's going to be tough to win at Gillette. The reason we always get destroyed up there is just we're not physical enough. We really struggle against physical football teams, and Brian has talked about he wants to be a physical, tough, smart football team. And hopefully he can do that. If he does that, then we have a way better chance of winning in New England. But it comes down to that. It comes down to the lines. It comes down to that. But him knowing the playbook and knowing the personnel for years, I do think is an advantage. And we'll see if he can. I'm not going to say we're going to win 2 games, but I think it definitely, we have our best shot to win in Gillette in a long time. If the lines are right. If they're terrible, then no, it's not going to be fun. If you can't get pressure on Brady, then it'll be a long day. This next question comes from Sam. He says, Hey Skaggs bag. I really believe we found our franchise quarterback in Rosen. Have been watching film and listening to post-draft analysts from a year ago, and no one had a negative thing to say, but he asking too many questions. Honestly, we have the best coaching staff for his talent, drop back passer, Jim Caldwell, Peyton, Flacco, Stafford, Chad O'Shea, Brady. The most important, Ryan Fitzmagic has seen every defensive scheme known to man. I consider him a coach. Rosen has a better career than Murray. Seen him at the rookie minicamp. That man looks like a middle schooler, not questioning his talent, but can that body survive an NFL season? Sorry for the long question. Really enjoy the content. I appreciate that, Sam. The question is, I guess the question is, will Josh Rosen be the franchise quarterback? He has a great chance to be that. It's just really, this year is going to be interesting because I think we all can agree that without any other indications, at least so far, he will, and if he impresses in camp and in the building, it's going to be interesting. And if he has a good season, obviously, but we don't know any of that yet. But as of right now, I think we all can agree on that it seems like this is a prove it or lose it kind of a deal to be a starter for this team long term. So in saying that, we have to fix the offensive line now. I'm not worried about the defense side because it's all about the offensive side. If we can't stop anybody, if this offense is good, this defense is going to be fine because of the secondary. But it just comes down to that offensive line and can we protect? So it doesn't have, to me, it has nothing to do with number 3. It just has a lot to do with the offensive line. But I do think he is a franchise quarterback if you can protect him. Sam, this next question comes from Sam. He says, best second-year quarterback in the AFC East. Josh Allen reminds me of Cam Newton. Doesn't get enough credit. Worse, Sam Darnold. That man is a white Mark Sanchez. I believe they went to the same school. Yeah, they both went to USC. I get in a fight with my arguing about Josh Allen all the time. I don't think Josh Allen... Anytime he went against, I know he went 5-5 as a starter, but he had the number one statistically the number one defense in football. That helps you. And most of those wins were against bad teams. So, like all of them, not most of them, other than the Vikings, but they were so up and down last year and inconsistent. They weren't a playoff team though. So yeah, all of the gets were just either mediocre or just straight up bad teams. He can't throw from the pocket. If you have a disciplined defense, he's not the greatest athlete in the world. He's a tough sack, that's for sure, because he's a strong dude. But in terms of keeping him in the pocket, if you have a disciplined and you have a good scheme, you got good preparation, you can keep him in the pocket and have him beat him for you. He cannot hit his progression. He's super inaccurate. If you just watch the game that he was on the road in Hard Rock Stadium, he missed so many throws. It was like watching Tim Tebow, a better version of Tim Tebow. He's got to be a better pocket passer. I think Sam Darnold has a way better chance. Sam had a better rookie year. He had better games than Josh Allen did. That when you watch it, you're like, he's got a real future in the league. Some of the Josh Allen things are just as good as something that Tyrod Taylor did when he was a Bill. Tyrod Taylor did the same thing to us that Josh Allen did when we played him. He ran all over us, and he hit deep throws. That was it. He made plays with his legs. If you can contain him, you will win the football game pretty easily. Unless he drastically changes the way he plays football, then I'm not... I think what they're banking on with Josh Allen is he can make enough plays with his legs, and they can win games with their defense. I really do believe that. And they're going to... Because the offense... I mean, what did they sign? Cole Beasley, and... They still have Shady. The offensive line, I don't think, is that much better. Zay Jones... Charles Clay is gone. I'm sure I'm forgetting some other people, but... It's still not that scary. They don't have an Antonio Brown or Julio Jones on their team that can take, a skill position... type of a player that can take over a game. Like, the Bills, I think, are super overrated. Their defense is good. They're really trying to build the Panthers in the AFC East. It's just he never had a 400-yard. People forget Cam had back-to-back 400-yard passing games, not running total yards, just passing the football. Josh didn't even come close to that last year. So. They're not even the same play. I understand not just you, but what other people are saying, but I don't see that. He's more of a Big Ben. He's a lesser Big Ben. I don't know. I don't believe in Josh Allen as much as that other people do. I think Sam's a better player. And I think if out of all the three of them who have the best chance of having a long, successful career, I think it would be Josh and not Josh. Josh Rosen and Sam Darnold, and I'm not being biased on that. Seriously, there's serious questions about Josh Allen being able to pass the football. Serious questions. If everybody remembers who Jeff George is, he's an athletic Jeff George. He cannot make this the soft pass. He doesn't have a touch pass in his game. He's not super accurate. He's just got a really big arm. So we'll see, man. I'm not saying he's got the talent to be something special. I just don't know. I mean, just because you run all over the place against the bad... First of all, he did not have a fast... I don't even get me started on Josh Allen. Again, Tyrod Taylor did the same thing against us, so I'm not even gonna... just because he had good games against us, I'm not gonna... And his other good game was against the Jaguars. And everybody's like, oh, he's the future of this league. Nah, dude. Nah. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about Josh Allen. That is it for this week. And I am Skyx283, and I will see you guys in the next one.